All right, joining us now is author and media critic Steve Krakauer, who wrote the great book Uncovered: How the Media Got Cozy with Power, Abandoned Its Principles, and Lost the People. I love this book. Everybody should go out and buy a copy if they haven't already. Steve, welcome to the program, and I am starting to sense here that the media may have realized that Kamala Harris isn't such a great candidate after all. She's not very good at running for office. Have a look at what Jake Tapper had to say.
She focused a lot more on Donald Trump, I think it's fair to say, than she did on many specifics in terms of what she would do.
And that was Jake Tapper reacting to the CNN town hall. But we see an awful lot of this. I'd love to get your reaction, Steve. What do you make of this? Has she started to lose some of her biggest friends in the media?
I think it's getting so obvious right now that you can't deny it. I mean, that's what's interesting about this. Look, it's been a story that has, I think, been pretty clear for most people in the country that are not personally invested in this election, to election Kamala Harris. And yet it hasn't really been breaking through. You think about back to after that first debate, it was Joe Biden, right? And the media was saying, oh, he's fine. And then the debate happens, and then they can't hide it anymore. And so you got this amazing media coverage for 3 weeks of, oh, Joe Biden, look at all these stories that are coming up from years of how he's mentally unfit for the office. That was the media understanding that it was too hard to hide it. That's what kind of seems to be happening right now with Kamala Harris in the final 12 days before the election. It's probably too late, but they're seeing the polls and now they're saying, well, we can't hide it anymore. She needs to really do something different, and they're going to put the Jets on to try to make that happen.
I mean, do you see something ironic, though, Steve, in the idea that, they took Joe Biden, who couldn't string a sentence together for a variety of reasons and was an increasingly poor media performer, and replaced him with somebody who, for a whole set of other reasons, isn't able to answer a question, string a sentence together, and perform at events? It seems to me like, they've kind of replaced their problem with another version of the same problem.
You're totally right. It's just one of my little things I go back to a lot is that people think that there's some giant conspiracy at play here, whether it's between the government elites and the media elites and the establishment. If there was really this big conspiracy, they would have a plan. I think that was what became so obvious. They didn't really have a plan for what happens, if Joe Biden malfunctions on stage in June, and you certainly didn't have a plan for what happens after. There's been a lot of reporting that the bigwigs, the Nancy Pelosi's of the world, Obama, there's been reporting that what they wanted to do was a very quick speed run primary, maybe 3 candidates. Kamala Harris is one of those, but also maybe get Gavin Newsom or get Gretchen Whitmer, get some other people in there, make the final decision at the convention. You've got 3 weeks to do it. That didn't happen. Instead, we got what we saw, which was, we'll just put Kamala Harris in, and that didn't seem to pan out.
Yeah, no, but I mean, everybody who'd been watching her for all these years would have known that this probably wasn't, a great choice, but here we are. Hey, one of the things that I want to ask you, too, about is this media. I know there's not a, conspiracy on these things, but it does seem that, there is an ecosystem and a plan around this ecosystem as we get into kind of hit piece season here, with The Atlantic and The Guardian being the preferred medium to get all sorts of wild accusations out there. I want to talk about particularly what's happened with The Atlantic magazine, which used to be this great, powerful, intellectual magazine that Trump disparaged a slain soldier. Everybody has come out against this, said it's not true. Has The Atlantic now kind of sold itself out now that it's owned by a billionaire who's very close to Kamala Harris and is a big fundraiser for her? What's happening with these sort of left media outlets and how they're being used to push stories into the wider ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't ignore the fact that, Steve Jobs' widow, Lorraine Howell Jobs, is the owner now there. And she is a major donor and friend of Kamala Harris. And so that is kind of at the forefront for sure. But look, The Atlantic is the one who started this story back, years ago with John Kelly maybe said this. And it's all these very poorly sourced stories. You can always look and see if there's a story that you should believe if you've got a lot of anonymous sources, if you've got kind of, this person heard this person say it. That is not journalism, and that's what happens so often with these. The Atlantic has done this a lot. Now, the Atlantic has some good journalism. They have some good columns. They also do this in the October surprise timeframe, where they are just trying to, get that final little knock at Donald Trump, make it seem like he is some anti-military person. It's completely outrageous. Look, you could say a lot of things about Donald Trump. I think it's pretty clear he is who he is. We see it. There's not some hidden person behind the scenes. You either like him or you don't like him, but he is who he is. This kind of thing doesn't seem like it's going to work, but they are going to try it, and I don't think they're done.
Yeah, and I mean, it seems to me that if you, let's say, worked for a president who walked around admiring Hitler, you might have left or you might have said something and not waited 5 years to say something, like with John Kelly. But I want to ask, too, also with the media and the ongoing freakout by the New York Times and others that Donald Trump, oh my God, did a photo op at a McDonald's, because no politician has ever done a photo op where they got on the tools before. But I wanted to draw your attention to this particular line in the New York Times piece that dives into the controversy over whether Kamala Harris herself ever worked at McDonald's, as she claimed. And the New York Times has called this Trump seeding of doubts about Harris's story, which she cannot prove, as being outside the lines of traditional fair play. Does this just illustrate the total double standard here, where Trump is held to this impossible standard, and whatever Kamala Harris or a Democrat says, well, we obviously believe them?
Right, exactly. Yeah, no proof, but sure, of course, let's just take that at its word here. It's true unless proven otherwise. Yeah, that's exactly the hypocritical double standard there. First of all, why are they so mad about the McDonald's photo op? Because it's effective, because it's a powerful tool, not just to show him in a setting that's kind of the people, but because it raises the doubts about Kamala Harris's authenticity. It doesn't really matter all that much whether she worked at McDonald's for a few months, but what it does matter is that there are outlets like the Washington Free Beacon that looked at her first jobs that we can see, and those applications show that she lists all her past jobs, and McDonald's wasn't in there. The McDonald's story came about 5 years ago when she was running for president. Never came up for decades in the spotlight. Now, maybe she did, maybe she didn't, but what we know is it calls to mind her inauthenticity, and the media, they're very happy to take her word for it. And I got to be honest, it would not shock me at all if there's President Donald Trump next year, Kamala Harris's McDonald's record is suddenly a story in the New York Times in maybe April or May, when they really get around to actually doing some journalism about it.
Well, we'll see about that. Steve Krakauer, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.